The Biden administration has shown tepid and often wavering support for Israel throughout its 7 months of war against Hamas. But this week, Secretary of State Antony Blinken admitted the obvious. The only real barrier to a ceasefire negotiation is Hamas, as they reject good faith offers from Israel. With an Israeli incursion into Rafah likely imminent and the Biden administration acknowledging the truth of Hamas's obstinance, what can we expect next on the ground in Gaza? Joining me now in studio to discuss this and much more is a member of the Israeli Knesset, Simcha Rothman. He serves in the Knesset for the National Religious Party, the Religious Zionism, and he is the chair of the Knesset's Constitution, Law, and Justice Committee. MK Rothman, welcome to Washington Watch.
Thank you for having me.
We were together this morning at the National Day of Prayer at the Capitol. Your thoughts on that time of prayer?
I think it was. I felt very lucky and blessed for being invited to this event. I think it's important to remember that you can have the power to do things, but without the help of the Lord, of Hashem. You cannot succeed. And it's especially important for politicians to remember it. It's especially important when you see it in the capital of the superpower of the world. I think it's even more important message. And I hope more and more people will share these views and will understand that the need of the help from above is what we need to defeat the evil.
From your perspective, is that what strengthens the bond between the United States and Israel, is a common understanding of God?
Yes, and I think that the Israel in the founding of the United States, many people of the founding fathers were talking and thinking, and that they are creating a new Israel. You see it in the names of the cities. You see it everywhere, because they understood it's a place that some of them came so they will be able to worship freely. They ran away from people who did not let them worship the God the way they wanted. So it was based on religious freedom so people will be free to practice their beliefs. The people of Israel, as we all know, actually of the verses that you just read, came to the land of Israel, so they will be able to worship.
And live freely according to their faith, not just to be able to worship, but all of life really is to be worshiped before God, our work, everything.
Yeah, and that's common understanding, I believe, and the shared values is making the bond stronger.
So Israel, coming up, is about to celebrate its 76th anniversary. You're facing the greatest threat since the founding of the nation in 1948.
Yes, and the threat we need to understand. The threat is not Hamas. Hamas is a threat, and it needs to be eliminated. But the threat is that if Hamas will not be eliminated, we have the enemies surrounding us, and some of them living amongst us in Judea and Samaria, some of them, and we saw that when they felt that Israel is weak, they attacked.
Was that a part of the attack from Iran, perceiving weakness because Israel was being held back from going in and finishing off Hamas in Gaza?
I believe the attack also from Iran came because they understood that Israel might be alone. I think they discovered that Israel is not alone. We saw there was a famous economist front page saying Israel alone. We saw that Israel is not alone. We saw the help from the United States and other countries in the defense from the missiles from Iran. And we saw just last week The Congress approved the aid to Israel, and of course we are thankful for it. But the second they our enemies feel, and by the way, our mutual enemies, they chant, and not by chance, they chant "Death to America, death to Israel."
Well, we're the big Satan. You're just a little Satan.
Yeah. So the second they discovered, or they thought, that there is a division, there is the alliance between the U.S. and Israel is not as strong. Some of it because of saying that came from the State Department, some of it because of pressures. They mistakenly thought that's the time to attack Israel. We need to go against it. We need to stay united on the fight against evil.
So, M.K. Rothman, let me ask you this then. With that in mind, there is evidence that these college campus riots, demonstrations, in part we've talked about, we do believe that it's a spiritual vacuum that's been created in this country because we've pushed God out of our really our public space. But there is evidence that there are outside agitators conspiring to do this. Is that a part of trying to create a narrative of division between the United States and Israel?
I think so, and I think that some people think, and I think it's a mistake, try to sell the narrative that the U.S. is being attacked because of its support of Israel. That's not true.
No.
That's not true, and I would say it's the other way around. If Israel, again, Israel is attacked by some people because of its connection to the U.S., but it doesn't matter because it's not about the connection.
But we have shared value. I mean, we're very similar.
Exactly. It's because of the shared values.
Right.
And it's not, so we cannot have the real choice not to be connected because we share the same values. And that's why our enemies sometimes define who we are better
it's just
than
who
we are.
You're just in a much worse neighborhood than we are. It's a pretty tough neighborhood over there.
But you need to know that the neighborhood becomes tougher also in the U.S. What's happening in campuses, what's happening in mosques all around the U.S.
What has happened through the porous southern border.
Exactly.
And the cells that we have operating in this country, it's just a matter of time.
So Israel, I think the lesson from October 7th is double. There is one lesson that you should never turn a blind eye to evil and to terror and to people who want to kill you. The second lesson is that even when you are living in a very bad neighborhood, the power of the real ambition to forget the bad neighborhood, to look aside, to step away from the evil, which is understandable. No one wants to confront the evil day after day after day. If it can happen to Israel, it can happen everywhere.
It was interesting. I was in Israel about a month ago and was meeting with now retired, but a former general, and asked him the question. I said, was it an over-reliance on technology that allowed the October 7th event? He said, in part, yes, but there was also an arrogance that we were overconfident. And if that's what I hear you're saying, we have to be always vigilant.
We cannot allow the evil to be let alone.
Yeah.
Once you try to run away, and basically that's what we tried to do, to run away from the evil instead of confront it. So we ran away from Gaza in 2005, and we did the disengagement. I wasn't in politics, but I definitely was against it. But and some people said, okay, so we ran back to the old borders, and we closed the door, and now it will be okay. Immediately, it gave power to the evil. Hamas took over, and the rest is history, and terrible history.
Which is, by the way, should be Exhibit A of why a two-state solution won't work.
And I was very happy to read that President Trump said it in an interview, that the understanding that the two-state solution is really not a solution, and the Palestinian state is a terrible way to destroy the state of Israel. This understanding must be way more broader than it is today.
Right. It's just a matter of education. Let's go now to the latest on the negotiations as Hamas continues to stall. Are we any closer to a ceasefire, seeing more of the hostages released?
The way to get to a ceasefire is to destroy Hamas. Hamas is not hiding the will and the means to destroy Israel, to have more and more October 7th. You can do a ceasefire when there is a war, there is a dispute, and you can postpone it. But Hamas already showed, first, that he's holding hostages. And as long as there is hostages, we cannot have a ceasefire. But also that on October 6th, we had a ceasefire with Hamas.
Right.
So to say, let's have a ceasefire, what does it mean? When Israel will use the time of the ceasefire to make better inventions in the startup nations that we are, to create a better society, to create a better place for our children to grow. That's what Israel will use a ceasefire time. Hamas will use ceasefire time to get more tunnels, more rockets, and to plan the next October 7th. That's why you cannot have a ceasefire with evil. You have to fight it.
Is there any advancement being made on the hostages that are still being held?
So, from what I hear, Hamas is not in any position to agree to release all the hostages. The deal of a partial release of the hostages is very, very dangerous. Israel, as it was said before, Israel is not the obstacle to bring back the hostages. Hamas should return the hostages, and actually, we need to put pressure on Hamas and Hamas enablers all around the world.
Yeah, who are those enablers?
So of course, the simple answer is Iran. And sadly, the sanctions over Iran were removed or diluted, so it became it became easier for them to support Hamas. UNRWA is another Hamas enabler. Also, were sanctioned before, and the American taxpayer paid hundreds of millions, billions of dollars.
They were removed from the latest appropriations bill.
Yeah, but over the past years, it was paid by the U.S., by other countries, and this money turned the entire society of the Palestinians to support October 7th. They learned that in the schools paid by American
I've seen the material.
taxpayer.
I've been there. I've seen the material.
And that's terrible.
Anti-Semitic, teaching children to hate, refusing to even acknowledge that Israel is a country.
And direct calls to terror and praises to anyone who committed terror. So terrorist is a hero to those children, and that's why they become terrorists.
What does
themselves.
that look like in the future once Hamas is eliminated?
So I think that it made very clear by the Prime Minister Netanyahu that Israel must hold the Gaza Strip and have security power within the IDF, because if we ran away, it will happen all over again. Gaza has to be demilitarized, and we have to make the process in some way it should be like what happened to Nazi Germany after World War II, of denazification of what's happening there. We need to make sure that the education system does not teach terror. We need to make sure that Hamas does not come back to power.
Got to be dealt with, and I think the determination is certainly there on behalf of the Israelis. MK Rothman, I want to thank you for joining us today on Washington.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for your prayers and support.